All right, hey guys, Hook'em Horn 7 here. Saturday, February 17th. Wilkinson World's kind of in the middle of recruiting, pretty much over. It ends tonight, so not a lot going on. I'm joined here, thankfully, with my normal partner in crime, Husker Fan 26. Bud, how you doing?
I'm doing good, and it's Sunday, not Saturday.
Oh yeah, well, we usually do this on Saturday. That's a weekend. That's all that's important. We have a treat for you guys today. We also are joined by Gators06, coach of St. Joseph's in Division Two. How are you doing today, Gators?
Doing well. Glad to
Good,
be on board.
good. Yeah, we're glad to have you. We've been trying to talk about or trying to figure out a way to get some D2 love in there. We've been kind of just focusing on D1 AA and D1A, just time constraints and trying not to burn ourselves out. So glad to bring you here and kind of pick your brain a little bit. But so for kicking off the show, we kind of figured we'd briefly touch on the Husker Fan 26 situation, as many of you probably know already. We'll talk about that really briefly, and then we'll pick Gator's brain a little bit, and then maybe talk about dynasties and whether or not they're good for Gridiron Dynasty. So Husker Fan, we're glad that you are here and able to join us. I was a little worried if we were going to be able to continue H&H at all if you weren't here, but glad you're joining. For those of you who don't know or didn't see in the forums, you can go read about it. There was a big, I don't know, kind of rule crackdown by What If Sports. What had happened is someone in Hayes was thinking that the Husker Fan 26 and the Husker Fan 58 accounts were the same person. In order to try to diffuse that, I sent a site mail to the person who was accusing them of being the same person, and that turned into they found out that Husker Fan 26 had quote unquote illegally received a transferred account, which resulted in a 3-day ban. It was going to be a permanent ban, but thank you to everyone who helped support the cause and really fought to bring back a valued member of our GD community. Husker Fan 26 is back. Husker Fan, what do you have to say about the whole situation? Anything? How was your 3-day break from Gridiron Dynasty?
Well, first off, I want to, say thanks to everybody, who lodged a complaint of some sort and managed to get me back in GD. My 3-day vacation felt like 3 years, and during those 3 days, I decided to try and expand my vocabulary by picking up a book and reading. I only managed to get through a single page, and then I was back to GD because the withdrawal is real when you are withdrawing from an addiction. So I was glad to be back.
Yeah, but I suppose that kind of withdrawal, like if you intentionally left What If Gridiron Dynasty, What If Sports, that's a little different, right? Like you were basically just dealt a hand and forced to deal with it. He gave you like not even 24-hour notice, right? That he was shutting your account down.
Yeah, it just let me know like one or two things you could start all over again, or that was the end of that. And after considering real lifetime that was put into to get where I was at that point in time, I was like, this might be a good attempt as any to just call it quits because I remember the work that had to be put in to get there, and then once I got to all the teams and everything, maintaining all of that stuff and all the experiments that I had run for my playbooks and everything. But hope thankfully you managed to reinstate me, and now I can kind of pick up where I had left off, and hopefully we'll be able to make all the guys who wanted me back proud.
Good, yeah, yeah. There was a lot of site mails with Sybil and I'm sure many others. I know myself, I sent quite a few. I feel like it was good for me though because I really got to see how I genuinely felt like he does want to get this game going and get updates going, but he was telling me that he has to spend so much of his time is actually spent checking and doing investigations on those rule violations that his hands are pretty tied for what he's saying. But I think by doing this, I think took a huge step in showing that Sports Hub and What If Sports are, willing to listen to the customer base. They saw compromising solution to this. I mean, you did ultimately end up losing Alabama and Leahy, but you got everybody else. Recruiting classes hurt a little bit, but I think it's good just to build the relationship between the administration and the GD community. We were kind of lacking in that, so I think that was huge, and really appreciate what Sybil did by, reaching a compromise and reinstating the account.
Oh
Um,
yeah, definitely.
Good. Yeah. And on that, Gators, you have had a ton of success in Wilkinson, and particularly I saw you were in two worlds at St. Joseph's. And let's just kind of dive in here with, and kind of get a Q&A going, pick your brain a little bit. How did you get into Gridiron Dynasty or What If Sports as a whole?
Um, I started looking, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a little longer now, for actually a baseball simulation game. Played baseball, played Division I baseball, played in the minors for about 3.5 years. I've been coaching baseball since then, so just absolutely loved it. Played high school football as well, but I actually stumbled across What If Sports looking for a baseball simulation. Was in, did the baseball sim and What If Sports for several years, but won some World Series there. I started looking around elsewhere and started down with Gridiron Dynasty and just really stumbled into Rockford and Wilkinson, tried to give it a shot. Just fell in love with it right out of the gate. So that's how I ended up, and now I exclusively play just Gridiron Dynasty. I must mess around with the baseball for forever. So that's how I ended up there.
Okay. You were kind of cutting out there a little bit. I don't know. Are you on a phone?
Yeah, I am sorry.
Okay, no, you're fine. It sounds like it's trying to pick you up. It's just like you faded in and out a little bit. So I got the gist that you started it as a baseball game, or you were looking for simulation baseball. You've had baseball, throughout your life. I couldn't hear exactly how you got into the GD part. I know you said you played football, but couldn't hear how that. Did you
Yeah,
just stumble upon GD then?
I did. I just started looking around inside What If Sports inside of the Gridiron Dynasty and poked around and then decided to jump into it.
Oh, cool, cool.
Um, just do it right out of the gate and just kept going from there.
Oh, nice. That's kind of similar to me. I didn't do baseball, but I think a friend stumbled across the hockey, the sim hockey, and that's how I actually got started. And then yeah, found GD too. Have you tried any of the other games that are out there? I think there's like Pigskin Empire. There was the Grey Dog Software. I think has one out there. That name is can't think of it right now. But have you tried any other simulation games out there as far as football or even baseball?
I have not. I just locked into What If Sports and I've stayed there. I've looked into them a little bit, but I have not tried them
Okay.
at all.
Okay. Well, and I've tried a couple of them, Pigskin Empire and that Grey Dog. They both have aspects that I think are great. But a lot of people, I will admit this too, that GD is probably the best one out there. So what is it about Gridiron Dynasty that keeps you here and keeps your attention and your interest every season?
I just love the challenge. Obviously very competitive my whole life and still am. And outside of being old and over 40 now, can't do the things my brain wants to do. My body can't do them anymore. So it's just a good way for me to compete, and I enjoy it. And it's I think the game, due to coaches, is constantly changing, and there's new challenges with different coaches, what have you, in different teams, and all the way from recruiting on through game planning. So I think that's what keeps me going. Is just I love the challenge. I love accepting new challenge and trying to conquer it.
Yeah, good. And then you're in definitely a good world of that in Wilkinson. The D2, I know it kind of seems to fluctuate quite a bit. Like D1 AA, I feel like our numbers are up for a couple of seasons, then back down. But there's definitely some staples that have been down there with you for a while now.
Absolutely.
What if Sebel just posted on the forums about he's potentially doing a recruiting update. You sound pretty satisfied with the game, but are there any changes, recruiting-wise or not, that you would like to see implemented into the game?
Absolutely. I think this movie's been kicked around quite a bit. I know hopefully this latest rendition or discussion on recruiting updates will get some traction, but the 6-hour cycle is the biggest thing. I'm sure everybody, and speaking for myself a little bit, I hate to assume anything, but this is a hobby to most folks, and 3-hour cycles during recruiting, especially in a pretty full world, like especially Wilkinson, is you got to stay on top of it. Going to the 6-hour cycles will help tremendously. And then also just a better way to send your actions. I think the term used in the latest discussion was bulk recruiting. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of that. I think that would help tremendously. I think those two steps would get it in the right direction. I've got some other ideas I think that I'd like to see just on distance and scholarship numbers and things like that. But I think the 6-hour cycles and bulk recruiting would help tremendously.
Yeah, I agree with that. Whenever I try to get someone new into the game or someone's inquiring about it real life or even through the site, I'm always kind of like, recruiting and then obviously if you make postseason, those are kind of the two most attention demanding times just because, the recruiting is every 3 hours. You got to really stay on top of it because really if you miss one, especially like you said in a full world, I mean, your class could go from pretty decent to pretty terrible, overnight, literally. So, and I'm agree. I like the recruiting by the bulk, and then I think implementing something like what Yatzer had, where you can see, you can search by school and see how many people they're looking at. It's not like I can, a lot of people are maybe saying that this could be like a Hoops Dynasty update. I'm not sure if you've played that at all. But Hoops Dynasty is not such a big deal to know because, well, you know how many scholarships they have, but I think the most you can have for any year is 6. So, I mean, if you see, and generally you're a little bit more restricted as far as geography than you even are in GD, at least from what I've seen. And so you can kind of look around pretty quickly and see 4 or 5 guys that he might be on. It's not 18 guys that he's got to go out and you got to try to find 18 dudes across whatever it is, 12 different positions to be able to try to find out whether or not he's in battles or he's got his class locked up.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree.
And speaking of any updates, is there any updates that after this recruiting update comes out, or any update in general that could cause you to leave Gridiron Dynasty?
I think if this recruiting doesn't start going in a more efficient direction, then I'm just more and more limited with time. I've got 2 teenagers and I coach baseball. So just it comes down to a time factor for me. And I think this recruiting is not going in the right direction, starting to get more efficient. There's always going to be somebody unhappy, but if you can get the majority of folks on board, then I'm probably looking at peeling back. Maybe I've got 2 teams, one AA in camp and then one in Wilkinson. I'm probably it's irritating, and they got to change. And I'm probably looking at maybe bagging it up altogether and just doing something else. But this recruiting, I think, has got to get sorted out. It's a week long, and it's a lot of effort, especially in a fertile world like Wilkinson. And it's just going to it's going to benefit everybody if it's more efficient. No one's going to get an edge.
Yeah, that's true.
No one will get an edge from it. It's just it'll be a level playing ground, but it needs to be sorted out sooner rather than later.
Did you use the Yatzer recruiting tool at all?
No. Well, you know what? I did a couple times. I downloaded, and I'll tell you what I did for is I used it. I download and mess with the formula situation.
Okay.
But I developed my own Excel, and I kind of developed my own ratings for players, and then just kind of tested over season after season and how it actually affected the play on the field and their success. Everything from yards per carry to catches per carry, sacks, interceptions, pass defense. So I did it with a little bit just as a different way to do it, but I've got my own Excel sheet that I've used for ratings and things like that. And right now, it's a hybrid of just obviously everyone's using the What If Sports. You pull it up and you can go to ratings or overall. So I used a little bit, but not much.
Okay. And Husker fan, I know you used it. We kind of introduced each other to it because I had gotten away from it when Husker fan kind of got into it a little bit more, kind of revamped me into it. But one nice feature that I know that you're talking about efficiency and time thing is there was actually, and this is why I think a lot of people kind of gave it such a hard time and said it was kind of cheating, is there was a thing in there where you could set recruiting actions for players and it would actually recruit for you if you had it set up. And so I think that's why people want this that bulk action thing so badly is recruiting 20 guys and sending him each of them, whatever, let's just say 10 campus visits, some calls and letters, like that's good 40 minutes out of your day trying to send that to everybody. And instead you could just pop through each guy, send him each 5, and you're done in a couple of clicks. So I totally understand that. Husker fan, did you use Yatzer, but did you use the recruiting function like that, or did you use it more kind of like I did to kind of scout and just look for players?
It was more to scout and look for players. I never used the recruiting tool where you plan the actions because I always felt like, I still wanted to somewhat maintain some form of control over the recruiting process. So I still went in and clicked on everybody and actually, sent in the actions myself just to make sure that to feel like, I was actually doing something. But Yatsa was cool to try and see, who you were competing against, how many scholarships they needed, the distance advantages, without having to click through every single player that you were kind of looking at who was on your recruiting board, which was pretty cool. If they just sort of incorporate some of that into the recruiting on GD, I think they'll be able to, get some more people to actually join Wilk or any other world, and some of the old timers might actually come back because it'll be more efficient, and you'll be able to get through it that much quicker. And with the 6 hour cycle also, that'll definitely help.
Right. Well, and nice thing about something like, Yatzer 2 is, like Gators, I'm sure you can probably attest to this. I feel like at the lower levels, since there's so many more players and more teams, obviously, you can kind of cast a bigger net, so you're going to have maybe a bigger set of people on your recruiting list than maybe a Division 1. And so being able to effectively hit those guys or effectively scout those guys, I mean, it'll help make your net, and hitting everybody in your net a little bit easier.
Oh, absolutely. And just to, I did this on the forums, but I want to reiterate my stance on the whole recruiting tool is I didn't care. I know folks, like you said, could set it up and put it on autopilot, for lack of a better term. I didn't care. I mean, the way I look at it is, if you're going to compete, I didn't view it as cheating. I didn't care. I still game plan with a pen and pencil, and a pad of paper. So,
There you go.
everyone's got a different way to do it, and if people that tool is available to everybody, and if some folks use it, I didn't care. I mean, I just looked at it. That's further a challenge. As if I can out recruit you, and you're using that tool, and I'm old school horse and buggy, then as just a bigger challenge to me. So,
well, I mean,
anyway.
my translation, I guess, sort of to real life would be like analytics. A lot of sports nowadays are shifting towards analytics. They analyze every single thing of the game, and some still don't. I mean, I think everybody does to an extent now, but maybe some take it to more extremes and look at different things than other ones. So I kind of look at it that way. It's a tool that you can use, but you don't have to. You can still do pen and paper game planning. You can still go out and scout your opponent, or you can get these analytics stats from wherever and just analyze your team. All of that said, there's a lot of work that goes into building a solid, consistent title contender team. Gators, for you, what are some key things you need to do or you need to have in order to have a consistently national title contending team? I mean, obviously you're running St. Joseph's is probably almost unprecedented. So what does it take? What are some keys that you think it takes to build a successful program like that?
You got to have good players, and that's first and foremost. And especially in D2, that's why I've been in 1AA before, and I'm there again in camp. I think it's maybe my third or fourth season, and I'm going to try to make that a long-term play. Like I said, as long as recruiting keeps going the right way. But what I love about D2 is you can see massive player development throughout the season, but you got to have, some folks say that it's Jimmy's and Joe's, not the X's and O's. Yeah, you got a game plan and you got to use your players correctly, but you got to get the horses to run, and if you don't have them, then you can be you can be Bill Belichick, and you're really going to struggle. It's just not going to. And you got to have, every class has got to be good, and that's what I love about Wilkinson is there's a very populated world, and you're battling for linemen on both sides of the ball and every position player, and you got to have a daggone good team. Recruiting class every time. Like you said, if you slip on one, it might not be the next year's impact, but when those guys are juniors and seniors, you're going to see it.
Yep.
So it's just, you got to pick your battles, man. It's just, you can't battle every single person. I tried doing that early on and didn't work. So just kind of be more patient and more tempered in my approach on recruiting.
Yeah, that's fair. Kind of touching on that. So would you say then that you think having talent is more important at, I guess, maybe particularly D2 than game planning? I know a lot of people kind of do this debate. Talent is obviously important, but you can out game plan and you could be pretty successful with low talent, which I think is true to an extent. But do you think a person with decent talent, average talent, maybe slightly above average talent, with a great game planner, do you think they could compete for national title, or do you think, especially at D2, since there's kind of a decent difference in like good talent versus not good talent, do you think that you have to have top talent in order to be able to do it?
No, I think giving the top talent every year, though, puts you in a better position to game plan. If you're one dimensional, for example, you've got a good receiving, you're running a balanced offense and you've got two good receivers, but you don't have a running back you got two running backs or whatever it may be, or a weak offensive line when it comes to running. And defensively, I'm looking at you and, okay, I know what I'm shutting down. I'm going to try to make you beat me with your 2.5 yard per carry running back instead of your wide receivers that are getting down the field for 14, 15 yards. Same thing on defense. Do you have a good linebacking core, or do you have a good, strong defensive backs, or you just not have enough depth where third quarter, fourth quarter, that fatigue is going to sit in on your whatever may be one of the levels of your defense, whether it's your linebacker, or defensive back. So I think with good above average talent and great game planning, you can be extremely competitive. But the depth and the high level of talent at each position on both sides of the ball gives you more opportunities to game plan.
Yeah,
you can attack defense and offense. You can attack completely differently. You just got to have that depth.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it just gives you that extra advantage, right? Because obviously, if you're going to be able to recruit really well, obviously you're a perennial national title contender, you're probably going to be pretty decent at game planning already. So that talent just helps push you over the top. And I feel like
Absolutely.
I'm kind of noticing that even at D1AA as I've rebuilt, Indiana State. At first, I was maybe close to pulling off some upsets. I lost my first round of playoffs by 7 against Villanova, who's now a 2-time national champion. A little different team back then. I upset, Youngstown State my second year, but it's now that I've established this program a little bit more, I can definitely feel a difference in, having actual consistent top 10 classes versus, oh great, we've had a couple top 25 classes, but we're still building. I can definitely feel that now. Why St. Joseph's? Is there a particular reason, or did you just stumble on them? Oh, sorry, Coach. Didn't mean to cut you off. What do you got?
Oh, before we go on to that, like when you guys recruit, D1AA and D2, are you more worried about the potential of the recruit or the attributes out the gate?
You can go first if you like Gators, because I think D2 is different than D1AA even.
Agreed. So I'm not going to try to be evasive in this this answer, but so depends on the position. Am I going to be able to start this individual early as a freshman? I'd be able to get a lot of play time. So is there potential maybe not in the top 2 tiers, but their work ethic is pretty high, relatively speaking, and their attributes are good. So where this person might be high attribute, high level rating for their position, but maybe a middling, or I should say middling to lesser potential, but a high work ethic. And I know I can improve this individual by giving them more playing time, upping their work ethic and setting it off. And then there's also the guys that might not be a top 20 player, that have the higher work ethic that you just know as a junior and senior, they're going to be there because of that. So there's 2 ways to get there. And you just got to, I deal with math a lot every day with my work. And I just, over the years, kind of come up with my Excel spreadsheet. I've got a pretty good potential, for lack of a better term, a way of understanding what these guys, I think they're going to be. Low work ethic, good potential, versus low potential, good work ethic. And then obviously you want to be in the good potential, good work ethic area. So I strategically look at that, and it comes down to certain battles on certain positions, whether I'm willing to fight those or not, and willing to take a guy that I know for a fact this past recruiting cycle that is going to be finished up today in Wilk, I took 2 offensive linemen that are going to be top 5 overall rated, but their work ethic's crap. Do I think they can get to where I think they need to be as a junior and senior rating wise? Yes. Are they going to fall from where they are now? Yes. Can I deal with it? Yes. So I look at every single position that way, especially when you're looking at redshirting specific players. It's no no secret. I redshirt 3 positions every year, and that's it. So those players I look at differently and what I'm willing to fight for. So make sure I keep my powder dry, and late in recruiting battle, I make sure I'm sitting on as much money as possible.
That's fair enough. That's a good way to look at it. For me at D1AA, I used to only look at potential because I felt like it was such a big deal at the non D1A level. But I've kind of shifted a little bit where I am willing to take some more average potential based on the current talent and kind of like Gator said, how much this player is going to affect my team right now versus in the future. But one thing that's made Wilkinson particularly tough is the D1s, especially now that the Mac got extra coaches, is I don't really get a lot of choice anymore either. The way I recruit, I don't it doesn't afford a lot of extra assets for me to go out and make a mistake about hitting a guy. I'm pretty methodical when I go for a guy. That's kind of who I'm set on in a sort of sense. And so going out and trying to do that with multiple people, it just doesn't work. There's not enough money, and D1s jump so many guys. So for me, I might have to settle for average potential. Obviously anybody with potential is who I want, but if I can't get it, I've gotten my mindset where he's good enough now, even with average potential, and the work ethic is sufficient that I'm okay to go with average potential.
All right.
Okay.
And I apologize. I think you asked me, and I want to make sure I answer the question. I know you asked me why St. Joseph's. Mm-hmm. I was at Rockford D3 for 4 or 5 seasons, and then obviously got hooked and just decided I really loved the game, competition. So I literally picked St. Joseph's because at that time they had not won any national championships. And I think I got there in season 80 something. They'd won 10 conference championships in 80 previous seasons. So I wanted to go out there and, successful or fail, make it mine and put my mark on it, just because this team was the perpetual underdog. And I wanted to see if I could do something and make it special. And that's more than anything, I've stayed there that long because I feel it took it from no national championships to we're competitive at the national championship level, and we're able to win a bunch of conference championships. So that's special to me. That's more special than picking up a team that's won, 50 conference championships and 15 national championships. That's more maintaining. I'm a big advocate of building, although I say that, and a couple seasons ago I jumped to Robert Morris and 1AA in camp right after they won the national championship. So. I apologize. I realize I'm self-aware of that.
That's all right. No shame in cherry picking, right? No, I'm kind of the same way though. Honestly, I mean, like when I took Indiana State, they had 5 double-digit losing seasons out of the last 6 years or something to that effect, and so I was like, and I don't think they hadn't had a sustained human coach in a long time. At 7 seasons, which is where I currently sit, that's the longest a coach has ever been with the team. So I'm kind of with you on that. Like I look. And Husker fan, and you could attest to this too. I'll text you once in a while and be like, hey, should I go to this team? Or I'm looking at this team. What do you think? And he's more of the kind of guy, he wants me to go to established program. Like, build that resume, try to get an elite. We like D1, so try to get an elite, that kind of thing. But I love rebuilds, man. They're kind of my jam. They're where I have the most fun. And so I hope teams I look at half the time, he's probably sitting there like, dude, what are you doing?
I sometimes worry about you, my friend, with some of your choices.
And kind of off that, was there a reason that Wilk? Is there a reason you joined Wilk, or?
No, that was just the evolution of me getting involved with Gridiron Dynasty. I think when I started looking into it after I was involved with baseball, I think it literally came down to I searched, looking for a job in the world. I saw the world was getting ready to recruit, so I said I'll just jump in there. That's why I picked up Rockford and Wilkinson, and then went to St. Joe and started having a little bit of success, and has just got hooked. And that's why I've stayed there. And the Wilkinson, world is just, I think it's great. It's just so active. Shows like this, Chetty 63 is just so active, and there's a lot of active additional stuff. I'm not super active in the forums, but I always, I'm always in there reading and things like that. But just all the other stuff they do. I read the Maze Run every year, even though it's, has nothing to do, every time it comes out, even though it has nothing to do with D2. I just enjoy reading it. It's just it's part of the deal and part of the world, and I think it's all good.
Yeah, Mays definitely produces some good stuff. For those of you listening, if you haven't checked out the latest one, Blitz is Coming posted some stuff about formations he uses both on offense and defense, and kind of a little bit about how he approaches game planning. Definitely worth a read, especially if you're newer. He picked his brain for you, so go read that. It's interesting to see how he sets things up. I'm trying to think if I thought I had another question for you, but it is now escaping me. When the job changes come over, do you ever look at other jobs, or are you pretty content with where you're at?
I have in Wilkinson. I have before. I've looked at going up to 1AA, and I just keep thinking I don't think I'm going to do it in Wilkinson. Not right now, at least, just because, like I said, St. Joseph's is my baby, and I just kind of want to keep riding that horse. I'm just having such a blast with it, and just over the years, there's been so many really good coaches and different defenses and offenses you have to face. When I first started, Achilles Red was in there, and he was all pass at Winona State, and I learned a lot from just getting throttled by him every year in the playoffs. Just figuring things out the hard way, which is, it's okay. It's a game. You can do that. And I kind of like doing that just because I think you learn more that way. And then Jay Murphy at South Dakota, and then Big Zeke at Colorado Mines. Jay Murphy was running a balanced at South Dakota and just killing it. And I wanted to beat him. And, we had a bunch of great head-to-head battles. And then Big Zeke was running, he's moved on now to 1AA, I believe, but he was running. We had some great battles forever. I'm running pro. At the time, I was running 4.3. I've switched to 3.4 here in the last 4 or 5 seasons. But he's running 4.4 in a Notre Dame box. Our offenses and defense really weren't. They were so much far apart. And I loved it because he stuck to his gun and kept running it, and I stuck to my guns. And by golly, we just had some great battles. I think we faced each other in the national championship game, I don't know, 8 or 9 times. That was enjoying, and developed a relationship with him. We'd sight mail each other and poke each other in the ribs a bit. And so just all that different, you're facing different folks all the time. And now you're seeing, I got their TVs over at Findlay in Ohio. So, man, he's right in my backyard for daggone recruiting. Alpha Flight's back. He's at Valdosta State. I had some great battles with him. I sight mailed him. I'm glad he's back because he brings it. And he's down at Valdosta State. That's, I like to dip into Florida for my guys. And now I know that sucker's going to shut that down on me. So, and you got East Stroudsburg, they're rolling, and you got Long Island's out there. I mean, so it's getting heated up again. I like it. And it's new offenses and new defenses you got to face and new recruiting tactics. So just keeps you fresh. And I really enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, and especially I feel like at D2, like with Zeke moving up and some of those other teams, the programs have kind of stayed. You've had some pretty consistent programs, which is always awesome. You don't want programs kind of slipping out and falling, and then they're gone forever into the sim wasteland. So you've had some programs that have been able to stay there, which is awesome. And then, obviously some of the ones that have been consistent. You obviously, Colorado Mines pretty consistent. We'll see now how the new coach is able to do that. Lock Haven's been pretty good, and Humboldt obviously always a pretty good recruiting place. So it's nice to see that some of those programs are just able to sustain success even without consistent coaching there. Because I feel like D2 is, I don't know, I feel like it's been kind of probably the most fluid of the 3 levels lately, but D1AA is right there too. So if you had to move anywhere, where would you go? Would it stay in D2? D1AA, you kind of hinted maybe. I know you said you're probably not looking, but if you had to move, where would you probably look?
I think I'd go to 1AA. If I had to move, I would. Like I said, I'm there in camp. I'd been there before previously. I can't remember the world, but I was at Youngstown State for a while. And then I think I had like 3 teams that time, and my work, just too much time with work and other activities, family, coaching. So I peeled it back to actually 1 for a while, went back to 2. But if I had to leave, I'd move up, go to 1AA. My role or my goal, in camp is getting to 1A. I'm going to, be at Robert Morris for a while, 1AA, just kind of understand 1AA better, and then my goal is to get to 1A, and then hopefully end up with an elite school. So it's going to take me a little bit of time, but that's my goal.
Okay. And would that be your first Division I program that you've been at, or just your first in a while?
No, that would be my first 1A. I've been in, like I said, 1AA before, but I have not jumped up to 1A. And a lot of that, I believe, and I could be wrong, but just talking to a lot of coaches, I'm friends with Pete 61. I know he's not active anymore, but just
Mhm.
talking to him about it comes down to time with me. And if the recruiting on 3 hour cycle, and my understanding of 1A, the recruiting is just very competitive and very, you got to be on every single cycle. I know right now with my work schedule, I would be destroyed recruiting wise at 1A just because of that. Not saying I'd be awesome changing it to 6 hour cycles, but I think if this recruiting changes a little bit, then I'm probably going to get to 1A sooner rather than later because I'd like to be there.
Yeah, yeah, that's where Husker fan and I, that's kind of our jam. I mean, I like D1 AA. I love D2 because I have like I'm from Nebraska, so obviously that's the only like level besides D3 that we actually have teams in what if sports. But I for whatever reason it's also probably like my least successful level. I probably spent probably the most time obviously at D1 and then D1 AA and then D3 and D2 are probably about the same. I kind of get out of them as quick as possible. I love D2, but I can't do it for whatever reason. So the higher levels tend to be my jam, and I don't know if it's because I like being a little more restricted, I guess, on players that I need to scout or what it is. But I've always envied people who found success at the lower levels just because I feel like recruiting is a lot more intensive in the fact that I've found that like athleticism means a whole lot more at the lower levels because you can get a pretty good guy with cores, but his athleticism is terrible. The guy doesn't really produce for you, as opposed to a guy that might have lower cores but good athleticism. Down the road, he develops well enough that he's really good. So that's been a big adjustment for me. I was at D2 not too long ago in Rockney. I'm trying to work my way up there, and so I've always envied D2 coaches and even D3. I know people maybe knock, those levels not as competitive as the other two, but I would say recruiting to me is even tougher because you're not looking at a bunch of 80s and 90s in stats. You got anywhere from like 50 to 70 for stats at D2, and you got to try to find the guys with potential and guys that aren't going with other teams or even getting D1 AA's on them or what have you. So props
Oh,
to you
you're
for being
right.
able to do that.
Well, listen, it's like I said, I think I would have moved on if it wasn't, like I probably the wrong term, but I view St. Joseph's as my baby, and I probably stayed there a little longer than I should have. But I just, like I said, I feel like I've kind of made it a little more successful than it was previously, and I enjoy that. So I'm gonna ride it for a while.
Good, good. Well, speaking of that, who do you think's your biggest threat to unseat your what I'm calling a dynasty? Don't think anyone would argue with me calling it a dynasty. Who do you think is the biggest threat to unseat your dynasty consistently? Maybe.
Um, you got TV over at Finley right now, and say we're a couple hundred miles apart, and so I'm fighting him recruiting on the recruiting trail, and he's building one heck of a team there. It's he won last year. I won this last season, but he won the one before. Played him in the national championship game, and then you got I always forget. I think it's Anton. Forget his last name or his full username over at East Stroudsburg. That's you're in the on the East Coast and the PSAC. That's a great place to recruit. So, and I know I'm thankful that there's some other East Coast teams like the Jargon on Long Island. So I'm hoping that he's fighting East Stroudsburg every chance he gets for recruiting. So, and I was hoping Colorado Mines wouldn't get filled up because then I could start moving out west a little bit and kind of pick up some recruits. And that door got shut. So, and like I said, you got Alpha Flight back down in Valdosta State, man, and that's a great place to recruit. He's got the whole Southeast really. There's not a lot of D2. There's no D2 schools in Florida, I don't think. So, he can wait for the Bethune-Cookmans and some other schools down there to kind of wade through there and start nailing some high-end recruits down there. And I recruit the Southeast from St. Joseph's. I always have. So, I mean, that's, there's some stuff going on. And you got, Streef Man down at Texas A&M, Kingsville. I think it looks like his roster has gotten stronger these last 2-3 seasons. So, I mean, I think it's going to be good. I think it's those guys are coming on, and I think it's going to be good. It's going to be a great competition and moving forward. And it's every game's getting tougher every year, which is fun.
Right.
So
Yeah, you got to keep it interesting. Got to keep it competitive. Otherwise, we'd just play a bunch of Sims, right?
yeah, that's for sure.
Is there a coach or a particular program that has been like a biggest thorn in your side? consistently challenges you on recruiting trail or consistently challenges you on the field? Is there one program or one coach that's consistently been that for you?
Historically, it was Jay Murphy at South Dakota. We both ran a balanced offense, so we were both looking for the same players. Colorado Mines, we didn't get into Big Zeke at Mines. We've had some great, like I said, I think we played each other in a national championship game 9 times or something crazy like that. We never really battled each other in a recruiting trail a lot. It was we never discussed it, but I knew he was taking those Western recruits, and I was staying in the Midwest and down south. So we only crossed each other in a recruiting trail a couple times. But by golly, like I said, his different. That Notre Dame box, I mean, he's all about power and throwing to his tight ends and what have you. And then the 4-4 defense, which was very difficult to run against, which I run a balanced offense, so that's important. So that was tough, man. We had some great battles, and he's a pain in the ass. So before him, it was Jay Murphy. So, but Big Zeke's, wish him the best. I know he's moved on. I'm going to miss those battles though. So, but now, like I said, you got TVs at Findlay, you got East Stroudsburg's coming on. There's plenty of really good coaches that are in good positions for recruiting to that next good rivalry or set of 4 or 5 rivalries I think that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, someone else to kind of just fill the seat once it gets vacated. That's good, right?
Absolutely.
Husker fan, do you have any questions for Gators or anything else you wanted to add to anything you heard?
Well, earlier he said, he's a competitive guy, and he likes the challenge. At 21 national titles in 69 seasons, are you really being challenged though? I think I'm a great believer that sharing is caring, right? Why don't you share some of these titles with others?
So as you recognize, I'm a competitive guy. So do you want me to go to a national championship game and run the ball up the middle 300 times and share?
Exactly.
Against my nature.
You see?
It's against my nature, my man. There's no sense in playing then. That's like putting a quarter in the Pac-Man machine and you're not chasing the ghost. I mean, you gotta, like I said, I'm at St. Joseph's because I felt that, like I said, there were 0 national championships there. I've thought about moving on before, but I'm having a good time. I'm having fun with it. I might move on to 1AA here eventually, but right now it's great. I mean, I'm enjoying it, and I'm waiting for the next challenge. That's what it is every year. So, sharing is caring, but I'm not taking any food off anyone. I mean, I'll go to my neighbors right now and shovel snow for them if they need it, but I'm not taking no food off their plate playing whist.
You have built a very impressive program. You know what? When I grow up, I want to be like you.
Oh, jeez. You need to get higher than that, man. You need to shoot a lot higher than that.
Do you have anything else you want to add, Gators? Do you have any other kind of last remarks before we kind of switch topics here real quick? Whether about pitching D2, pitching yourself, anything like that?
No, I think I love D2 and Wilk. I think it's great. I think it's you made the comment some folks might look down on it, or it's probably not the right term because you're not 1 or 1AA, but it's ultra competitive, and I love it just because the growth of the players, the development of players, which me being a coach, well, you might think I'm full of it or not, that translates to this silly simulation game that we all love. I'd love to see those guys. I want to get this guy, see how good I can make this guy. How am I going to get there? Is it through practice planning, work ethic, whatever it may be, put him in the right position? That translates to what I've done coaching baseball for 15 years, and I just really enjoy that. And that's what translates the most to me is at D2 you have more controls. Obviously, you have enormous player growth at Division III, but at D2 you got more controls. There's game planning involved, recruiting is involved, and just the player development's just. Well, to me, that's why I really like it so much. So, but no, and my comment is, shows like this, deals like this, podcasts like this, the maze, all that stuff. This is good stuff, and this is what keeps people hopefully coming back for more and staying involved. So I appreciate you stuff you guys do. God knows I couldn't do it properly, do it like you guys could. So
Well, thanks. We're still new at this. We hadn't done podcasts or anything to that extent since we started this. So I mean, we're still kind of ironing things out, trying to keep things fresh and switching it up. But thank you. We enjoy doing it, and people that enjoy it and people who join the World Wilkinson. That's kind of why we do it, right? We want the exposure. We want people to enjoy this and what else we have to offer. So it's good to hear that we're appreciated, and we thank you for that, and we thank you for listening and obviously being a part of it today.
no, I appreciate you guys involving me. It's great. It's good to talk to other whisk crazies, I call them.
Yeah, it's hard to do in real life, right?
It is. It really is, man. And so, like I said, I've had a couple conversations, like with Pete. I've had Pete 61. I talked to him on the phone several times, and what a great guy. And then Sight Mill, Big Zeke, and some other guys. But this is good stuff, man. There's you're putting more behind just than a silly username on a simulation game we're all playing. There's actual people there with different lives, different parts of the country, different things they do, different likes, and all, and that's what makes it fun, right?
Right. Yeah.
We're all different. That's what makes the world spin. That's what makes it fun.
Right. I agree.
Oh,
Well
yeah.
said.
Yep.
All right. Last little thing we're going to touch on then. Our dynasty is good for Gridiron Dynasty as a whole. We have someone who has a dynasty right now. Me and Husker fan obviously are not able to maintain dynasties or get dynasties, at least to this point. So, Husker fan, let's start with you. Do you think dynasties are a good thing for Gridiron Dynasty, or do you think they could inhibit, I don't know, growth or whatever?
Well, I think it depends on the world. In Wilk, I think they are good because then everybody has a target to aim for, and everybody will be going after that one person. Like in D2 Gators, I'm sure you have eyes in the back of your head because everyone is coming after you. Whereas in a world like yours, which is fairly empty, they might become a bit detrimental to the whole world because then everybody shows up, they give it a good go, but then they're like, oh, person X is always winning, and nobody is really challenging them. Always these same two teams year in year out who just pass the national title around to themselves like a joint. So then people end up leaving. Whereas in Wilk, you have D2, you have Gators. Then now you have Nova and D1 AA, and he seems to have put together a nice roster for himself. He has won it twice in a row. Then you go to 1A, Jason Freeman, 2 seasons in a row. Z32 has had it a few times. Like you have several people at the beginning of every season. You have a few guys that will be in the conversation. Your Easies, Jason Freeman, Blitz, Paul Subalak. A few guys, a few programs that will be in the running come the sharp end of the season. But then there's rarely anyone who has more than 3 wins in a row. Because I remember Notorious, I think he had like 3 in a row, 2 at Michigan, 1 at Penn State. And then everybody was like, you know what? Nope, we ain't going to let him do that anymore. And then somebody else showed up on the scene. So in Wilk, I think they are good because, like I said before, everybody's aiming for you and they are coming for your head. And it's more difficult to really get a dynasty going because there are so many good coaches around. But then in the empty worlds, I think it's a bit detrimental to the world.
That's fair. Gators, do you have anything to add about it?
No, I agree with what Husker said. I mean, I think he's right. And I never really thought about it that way, that it is world specific. If you're trying to expand it and market the game, for lack of a better term, and I mean, quite frankly, we all are to a certain extent, even though we're all users and we all pay into something that we don't own, right? You want to, right, playing Sims, right? And you want to, especially in the playoffs, obviously, you want to be competitive. I would think I want to be competitive. So to what he said about the worlds, and I never thought about it, that's a great way to look at it, is if you got a world that's not as populated as a Wilkinson, and you have a different national championship every year, or initial, playoff, or sorry, final game with 2 different guys, or national champion is different every year, then it probably will spur, has more potential there for other folks to get involved. So Um, I don't see it as being detrimental because once I started at St. Joseph's, man, I got my brains beat out forever, and all it made me do, like Husker said, was I want to go knock off the guy at the top. You go knock him off. I mean, I'm not a Patriots fan, but we NFL team, every single NFL team wants to beat the Patriots.
That's true.
Whoa,
There, I mean,
whoa, whoa,
you know,
whoa.
Hey,
Does everybody hate my team, my
yes,
Pats?
yes,
I,
unless you're
I didn't say
from
anything about it. I didn't say anything about. Oh man, I didn't say anything about hate. I,
Okay, okay,
I just
okay.
said I'm not a Patriots fan. I'm also, I'm not a fan of a
don't
whole lot. I mean,
don't
I
they
got
go
my
in
own
hand in hand? Isn't that like by default? If you don't like the Patriots, you're supposed to hate them.
right. But I have the ultimate respect for what they've done. I mean, 9 Super Bowls and they won six. I mean, that's ridiculous, and that to me is the way I look at it. So in 20 years, you know, I hate to get all nostalgia, but I'm gonna be able to sit back and talk about I saw that team play, even though I'm not a Patriots fan. I have the ultimate respect for what they've done. I've seen Alabama in college football. I got to see that. And I see Clemson rising. I mean, that's something I look at as that's just unbelievable. I remember my father-in-law is a huge basketball fan. He talks about UCLA and they have with 11, 12 straight or something in men's basketball.
Hmm.
It just to me I think that's interesting. That makes it fun is being able to talk about. I'm not an Alabama fan either, but what they're doing is just I mean it's amazing. It's quite frankly it's fun to watch that sustained success. With like for example Nick Saban losing coaches every year, other places.
Yep.
That sustained success is amazing.
Yep. Yep.
So that's my view of a dynasty.
I guess that's fair
So
points because I would guess I would say before I would say before this conversation I wouldn't say I was anti dynasty, but I did think it was. It's just hard when you see the same. I don't know. I would say that probably handful of guys, literally a handful of guys that are consistently winning national championships across the board at their level. I would have said that's. I wouldn't say, like I said, I wouldn't say it was a bad thing, but it makes it kind of demoralizing as maybe a new person. You're like, well, shoot. I mean, if I'm never gonna be able to beat that person, then I'm never gonna win a national championship. But I think it's fair to say that it is world dependent, and then it, a lot of people might rise to the challenge. I feel like a lot of I guess millennial flack or whatever you want to say is given out about them not really wanting to give rise to a challenge. But I would say that they are. I fit into that millennial generation. I rebuild programs, but I agree. I try to go out there and strive and beat the best team that's out there, the team that's a dynasty, and I'm in the same conference as Z32. We all know kind of what he's been doing at Division 1A across most of the world. So I'm not afraid of a challenge for sure. I definitely want to go out and try to beat that guy. And real life, I also am not a Patriots or Alabama fan. I would probably borderline put them in the hate category though. But it's true. The
Wow.
fact that Alabama, especially, he loses basically both coordinators almost every year. The fact that he's able to do what he's been able to do by switching that, like Clemson, Texas is my college football team obviously. And one thing that they've been preaching on is trying to keep that staff because that's what Clemson prides themselves on and why they think they've been so successful lately is being able to keep that staff. Well, if that's what teams are having to try to do to be successful, and Alabama is doing it without that, like that just says they're a level above everybody else. The fact that players come in, they're all talented. Obviously, they have huge amounts of talent across the board, and now Clemson is getting the same way. But if you can change your offense and your defensive scheme every year and still be just as successful as you were, like that's a testament to coaching and just their program as a whole. So I would say yes. You guys have kind of changed my mindset a little bit on dynasties, and I think they're a very good thing and something for everyone to strive for. Not don't look at it as a negative that you could never win. Go out and try to figure out a way to win this game. This game is about experimenting, trying new things. Don't get stuck in your ways. So you might as well try to find a way that guy hasn't thought of in order to beat him.
Oh
right.
yeah, like when with the blitz maze that he just did the other day, he inspired me to go and set up new playbooks which is something I haven't done in a while. And once I did that, I put them in play, ran them the other night, though it was against a sim, and scored more points than I usually average, hit more yards than I usually average. And I'm like, you know what? I think I might need to take this little experiment, across the board, across my other teams, and because I rate, coaches like Bleeds, Gators, because this guy is year in, year out, they are going to be towards the sharp end of things. They are going to be in the conversation, and I'm just trying to get a sniff of the conversation to try and get in there. So I think dynasties they're a good thing because then they sort of give you something to aim for, and then you can try and look at the schemes they run, look at what they are doing, how they recruit, what they might be doing with their game plans, and then try and emulate that, and also sprinkle a little bit of your own ideas in there to try and get one over them.
Yeah, and that's and back to the dynasty thing. I jumped into Camp D2, picked up St. Joseph's. Now clearly Robert Morris now, but I jumped into D2 camp and picked up St. Joseph's after Big Papa was there. Built a great team. But Pete 61 was at Hillsdale, just owning everybody. I went to that world specifically to go against Pete, to fight Pete. I wanted to play Pete. He's the best.
Yep.
He was the best. I mean, he had won something like 12 straight.
Yep.
I went into that world specifically to see if I could beat Pete. And you know what? I took it on the shins several seasons. I ended up knocking him off in the national championship game. I stayed 2 or 3 more seasons, won some more national championships, and moved on. But I sought out, which I thought was one of the greatest coaches ever to be in WIS, because I wanted to beat him. I want to learn from the best and challenge myself and see where I am.
Right.
And that's the only reason I went in there. Is to try that out. Now, did I have some clearly help? Big Papa had a great team there, man. He did. And so the level was, I didn't have to, do a whole bunch. I had to recruit, obviously, and game plan, but man, he had it in a good spot. So, but I wanted to go there specifically to play against Pete. I wanted to play the best.
Yeah, and that's
So
fair. I did kind of the same thing. I mean, when I joined Indiana State, part of the logic behind it was, well, one, the team, obviously, like I stated, was pretty terrible. But at the time, Northern Iowa was in the middle of their dynasty, or right in their dynasty. I did go there, I'll admit, to try to not help unseat Northern Iowa, but see what I could do against the best team that was out there at the time, and see if I could unseat them. And I've joined a conference with Pete. Heck, the Big Ten I'm in Leahy. I mean, that conference is absolutely loaded. So definitely not pulling back on any punches. So yeah, that's kind of my thing too. I don't play this game to play a bunch of sims or to play easy opponents. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind a easier game here and there. But I also go in there because you're going to have to be that best player to get a national championship, regardless of if they're running a dynasty or not. You're going to have to go through the best, more than likely, especially if it's a playoff scenario. So why not play against them as much as you can and kind of learn their strategies, pick their brain, learn from them, and see what you can do.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
especially when you're playing against a great coach. If you don't think you have a weakness, by golly, a great coach will find it. And to me, I look at it as that's an opportunity for me to learn. Okay, my linebackers got exposed. My defensive backs got exposed. Okay, I need to recruit better. Learn from that. If you just get torched in a certain area or they shut you down offensively, then that makes it continually sharpens you is the way I look at it. And before I forget, I want to give a shout out to Blitz because he is the man who convinced me to go to the 3-4. And I did that 5 or 6 years ago, or not 5 or 6 seasons ago, maybe a little longer. And that is, he gave me a lot of pointers on it, what have you. And Blitz has come and really helped me out with that. And he's the reason I switched to it. So I've thanked him before, but he really helped me with that. And I think that's helped me be better. So
interesting, because I used to run 3-4, and I've actually migrated back to 4-3. I like the set I have now. Husker fan's a big 3-4 person. I don't know. The 3-4 allows for more flexibility. I just have a base that I like to run out of the 4-3 that I've had pretty good success with. But it's interesting to see all the different philosophies that everyone has, because I've run, on offense, I run Notre Dame box. I currently run pro set, trips, and I formation. I'm trying to kind of just get I formation and trips for the sake of playbooks, but anyone out there can run just about anything and be successful. So,
right.
All right.
Yeah, and
sorry.
I also, one more. I just want to say, still sharpen steel. You want to get better at the game, you gotta go up against the good coaches, try and schedule them, join their conferences, see what they are doing, try and emulate what they are doing. That's the only way to get better, I believe.
Absolutely.
Yep. That makes sense. Got to beat the best to be the best, right?
Yeah.
All right, fellas. Any last remarks before we hang it up for the day?
Oh yeah, I have one thing to say. Everybody who came into Tennessee during my little, 3-day vacation, I'm not going to forget it. I've taken names, and I'll see you guys next season.
I love it.
So wait, does that apply to me for that offensive lineman I showed you out of Memphis?
Did I say everyone?
I
Hey,
thought it was. Hey man, I thought it was a blanket statement. I understood.
if
Exactly.
anybody should be in trouble, it should be Memphis because I pulled him out of his own city. But
So everybody be on the lookout next season because I'll be ready.
all right, fair enough. Gators, you got anything?
No, thank you once again. Thank you guys. This is good stuff. This is like I said, I'm not super active on the forums, but I like reading stuff, and I read the maze and then your podcasts and stuff like that. I always listen to them. I think it's great. When I'm driving somewhere to work or whatever like that, whatever. If I got a couple free minutes, this is good stuff, man. This is what makes it extra fun. So greatly appreciated.
Well, yeah. Thank you. Glad someone appreciates it and enjoys it. Hopefully, everyone listening enjoys it, and maybe we can get some new people to listen and take up. And we'll offer it again. If anybody's wanting to do something, whether it be on this show, start their own show. We have a website. If you go click on the maze, it takes you to the site. I just updated that last night. The coaches map for D1 and D1AA are updated. I've added the Coach of the Year and the Hall of Fame. That's all updated. So look around there if you want to write stuff. I mean, any way you want to contribute, definitely get in on it. And if you have any questions, definitely let us know. We'd love to have more people contributing and bring this kind of back to where it was, a while back. Otherwise, everybody, have a great Sunday. Sorry, did it again. Have a great Sunday, and we will talk to you at some point during season 150.